Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
Hi, I'm Terri Long.
And I'm Jeremy Eden, and we are the co-CEOs of Harvest Earnings.
Welcome to the Elephant in the Boardroom. Hi, Jeremy.
Hi, Terri. How are you?
I'm good. Happy fall, which means it is almost my saddest day of the year, which is when the pool gets closed. Yeah, not a fan of winter. Anyway.
Last week, it was a bright, hot, sunny day. Today, gray, rainy, thunder, lightning, and tornado warnings. So with that,
that's the way it goes.
Let's dig in.
So, we want to talk about an elephant in the boardroom, which is that, like the rest of us in life, the top of the house generally tends to have a small circle of acquaintances and friends, and they stay within that small circle. So in a corporate world, what that ends up meaning is that the executive team has a very small group of go-to people that they tap for the big projects or for the promotions or for the important stuff. And what they completely miss is that they have this undoubtedly, at least in the big companies we've been in, which has been many, bench strength they have no idea about. I mean, literally no idea. And of course, one of the things that always comes out of our projects is the exec team saying, wow, we didn't know how good this person, the other person are. So we want to talk about that and the importance of that, but it has very far-reaching consequences besides just the C-suite.
Yeah.
You want to take it?
Sure. And when we first meet people, there is this common refrain of, oh, well, I've got this really small team and they're just so stressed out. They have to do everything. They're my go-to team. They believe it's because of the qualities of these people are superior in terms of competence. And while they are good, very good, we certainly think that a lot of it is because we quickly glom on to certain people we like or we know how to deal with. We might not even like them, but they're very good teammates for what we need to do. And we create this kind of small world and think, well, everyone else doesn't really fit into that. But if people make the effort, both senior people to develop more bench strength or everybody just to develop a larger universe of people that inspire them, or in our personal lives, the reaching out to people on a human level, not because you need something from them or you want them to do something, but just to befriend people, ends up leading to relationships that have lots of benefits. And it's not some big emotional commitment and some big restructuring of your life. It's little touches that expand the human contacts you have.
Yeah. So many examples of things, but I was just thinking that each of my children have benefited from someone that I or their father knew. I mean, in a big way, right? Their lives have been changed, not just from having, in these examples, not from having them in their own lives, but just from the connection that we have that led to something. I mean, Lily ended up getting an apartment recently, completely coincident to the fact that you and I happened to have lunch with some people who knew somebody who she connected with, who then happened to say, we're moving out of our 1-bedroom apartment that's furnished in the neighborhood you want to be in. And there's housing crisis where this is. So, I mean, there was a great deal of stress relieved because this happened to happen. And it was only because you and I were networking.
Right.
Came up. I mean, the odds are against it. But also I am reminded of when I first moved to the suburbs, I was standing in our local Starbucks and there was a good amount of people in front of me in line. It was like just post kid drop off or whatever, and chatter throughout the whole thing. And I was standing there and I felt very alone. I didn't know anybody in Starbucks. And all of a sudden, I'm literally thinking this, like, wow, I know nobody here. This has to change. And I hear a voice behind me say, Terri? When it was an old college friend of mine. We've spent some really good time together. I've moved here. Just saw a play last weekend. We're going to see another one. But But the point is keeping these connections and not letting people just drift out of your life or never making an effort to bring them into your lives is bad both for business, but also for your own personal satisfaction and happiness.
Making those contacts and keeping them, and not for any particular end, right? This isn't, oh, so I can climb a ladder. It's just by having more people kind of in your life. You might hear about a book that, I knew someone from college I'd been out of touch with for decades, and we've recently been back in touch, and he's introduced some great books that I didn't know about. Or it might be that you can help someone because they think to reach out to you because you're in touch. And one person that was really good at this was, as I know you remember, Jim Rohr, the CEO of PNC. We used to always go see him at 8 o'clock in the morning, once a week, sometimes more. And when you walked into his office, he knew we were coming in, but his back was to us because his computer was facing the window and he was finishing up an email. And then he'd finish it up as he heard us walk into the office, and he'd spin around and sort of greet us with a big smile. And almost always, even though he got a million business emails and he took work very, very seriously, this was almost always some email to an old friend or a new friend that he had just met about a book, a sporting event, his hole-in-one at Pebble Beach, whatever it might be. And this sort of allowed him to create this large, sort of, gentle, removed a couple of relationships from him, a group of people who could call on him, he could call on them, and not just for needing anything, just for...
Okay, I want to dispute this, though. You've said this 2 or 3 times. It's not for needing anything. I think there's nothing wrong with building a network to climb a ladder or just to enhance your career. I think, in fact, that you should absolutely do that. Now, are we saying, have people in your life that don't align with your values? No. Absolutely not. We actually just did a podcast on whether or not you should stay or go from a narcissist, and our answer is go. But the bigger network you have, the better it's going to be for you from a career standpoint. I mean, opportunities will arise, would not otherwise arise if you didn't have this network. And you and I were talking about this earlier. This work from home thing is making it really, really hard for people to have the sort of network and the relationship. So it's not just them, but them in a way that you feel comfortable, reaching out and asking them for something. I mean, people are very uncomfortable in general asking for favors, right? Even though I think all the research says that people like to do favors, it makes them feel good, but we are all very hesitant to do it. And if all you've done is seen a face on a Zoom call, or even worse, heard a voice with the camera off on a Zoom call, that is not going to get you where you need to go 9 times out of 10.
Yeah. No, and we started this off by talking about senior execs not being aware that they have a bigger bench than they realize and more people they could draw on. And that's because they don't have some of that interpersonal relationship that makes them comfortable with people, those particular people, or see the value in those people that would make them give them a project or give them something that created a tighter work relationship. So yes, I just wanted, I guess, to make it clear that this isn't about necessarily having a particular objective and trying to hunt it down, though that might be also, but the letting serendipity, you meet someone, you develop a bit of a relationship with them, and you don't know where it leads, and it might lead to all sorts of good things. Like that lunch we had with the people that led to the apartment. That was certainly not done because we thought, oh, this lunch will help find Lily an apartment. It wouldn't have occurred to us in a million years, right? It's more like, these are interesting people. It'd be nice to spend, an hour meeting interesting people, and then it leads to something. But definitely, for example, executives before COVID, we would recommend that, we've seen senior execs go down to the cafeteria and just ask if they can sit with people. And initially it can feel a little awkward, But very quickly, end up having a lunch with these people talking about movies or whatever, hobbies, something. And then you see them in the hallway the week later, and there's something to chat about briefly. And then that could easily lead it into feeling comfortable saying, by the way, I don't know if you ever have a project on so-and-so, but if you do, I hope you'd consider me. Something you would never have made an appointment to walk into that person's office who you don't really know and ask them.
Right. And you raised Jim Rohr, which is making me think of the opposite of Jim Rohr, who we will definitely remain nameless, but it was another CEO of a big company who would ask us to deliver messages to his executive team instead of telling them himself, because he was a sort of, I'm in my office and I don't want this interaction, even though some of these people he had known for decades. We found it very bizarre, but that is a very closed off, very lonely life that nobody benefits from.
Yeah. We also did once work with a CEO who we would have steering committee meetings, which is his whole executive team, just once a week, very briefly, like 15 minutes to catch everybody up. And he would sit in his corner office and dial in to the conference room that was 3 doors away. And you just hear this disembodied voice. And I don't know if it's because he wanted to catch up on email while he was attending the meeting, or whether he didn't want people to put him on the spot. I don't know. It was a little strange. On the other hand, we've known people who are very good at developing these little relationships, and it can be personally very satisfying, and as you said, can really help in business. And with this work at home thing, we struggled to give advice about how do you create that connective tissue. I mean, I guess you could be on a Zoom call, hear someone you didn't really know, and then email them after the Zoom call saying, that was really interesting comment. I'd love to spend just a few minutes chatting with you. But it feels odd in the Zoom
Yeah,
world.
it's harder.
Teams world, I should say.
Harder for sure. Yeah, we use Zoom like Kleenex, even though we completely use Teams.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I've told you this, but my sister gave me a big compliment once after a big party that we'd had, that she was impressed that I had people from school age friends to college and every job in the neighborhood, and parents of kids' friends, and just this wide ranging group. And I hadn't ever really thought about myself that way, but I do try and hang on to people, probably less so as I've gotten older, which is not a good thing. But in addition to growing the network, hang on to your network. Again, not with people who don't align with your values in a big way. I mean, we're not saying, hey, if you're a Democrat, you can't ever be friends with a Republican. We don't mean it quite like that. But people are getting, I think, in general, much worse at it. You have situational closeness because you're working together on a project or something. And often there's good intentions to stay together, or to stay in touch, I should say, and then it falls apart and years go by and you've lost touch with somebody that brought you some joy at some point in time, or added value in some work way. I don't know. So I guess we should say, hey, listeners, if you're out there and you know us and we haven't connected in a while, drop us a note. We would love to hear from you and reconnect.
And we absolutely promise we will not ghost you.
Yeah.
Because this is one of the things that has taken over our culture, that's just another added element to why I think it's becoming harder and harder for people to have this connectivity. Ghosting seems to be permissible in some way, and it's very hurtful and completely unnecessary.
Immature. I mean, it's just, we're not saying you need to respond to every cold email you get. Absolutely not. But yeah, for people, if you want to cut off a relationship or just don't have time, for the love of God, just drop a quick note. Anyway, we let's not end on a negative note. So
No.
Connections are great. Many wonderful things have happened to us because of the people we know, and hopefully good things have happened to others because they know us.
Yeah.
So happy fall.
So make and keep connections. It's heartwarming. Okay.
Go out there and make some. Bye.
Bye.